Hey everybody, I'm here to talk to you about grip strength training, particularly thumb pinch training via the Titan's telegraph key, or in this case my Warren Tedding style. Anyway, you add weight here, simple seesaw effect, and you pinch down here at the end. Add more weight here very easily. For less of a range of motion, we just add wood underneath the back. The problem is twofold. Firstly, and mainly, you can never get fully pinched close with this style. The telegraph key or Warren Teddings are a homemade version because you're running this on an angle. There's no way around it. You're going to be always closing at a weird angle. You're never going to quite ever be fully closed. Also, as it opens, the top part's going to slowly travel out of your thumb. It's slowly traveling out. By adding the wood blocks, you kind of get rid of that, but not quite ideal because you're never going to fully train the closed position. Along comes David Horn's World of Grip Vulcan gripper with his thumb screws attachment, which is great because now look how tight we're able to get these fingers together. Your thumb is now in a much more closed position. It's a slightly different resistance because you're using springs or rubber bands than if you were using just progressive resistance of adding weight. It's not quite a linear strength curve with this as it is with that. But boom, you're almost fully closed. That's awesome. What if we could combine the two? What if we could use a more progressively loaded device but get the closing of the Vulcan? Because the one problem with the Vulcan is as it opens up your hand, it also is slowly rotting off that thumb. So working in television, I had an aha moment. And that is your typical camera cranes or film cranes. And the way they work is they're a parallelogram. And what it is you have the arm, which is basically two sets of metal lines that come down that run parallel. You have a mast which runs straight up and down, attaching to some sort of a base. And then you have a camera platform, another metal line that travels up and down. And they attach the platform that the cameraman will be on with a tripod or whatever camera. They add a bunch of weight back here. And once they get more weight back here to counteract, the camera guy will travel up in the air, but he'll remain parallel. That's the important part, the parallel part. So, stealing my son's Legos, I built us a prototype so you can understand what we're talking about. So you have 1, 2, 3 pivot points, and the 2 sets of lines that run parallel. These 2 lines aren't parallel to these. You have the mast, which would attach to the ground, and then you have the platform side. You could cut it here, it doesn't have to be that long, but you get the idea. They would add a bunch of weight back here so they can counteract the weight of the cameraman and the camera, and by doing that, they can get them up in the air, high in the sky. And when the weights are almost equal, like a seesaw, it's very easy to move this back and forth. So the idea that I came up with is, well, what if we did something like this for our grip training? So instead of making it for moving the cameraman up and down and making it easy, what if we made it hard to push them down? And so let me show you my prototype, also using my son's Legos, of my Lego prototype hand trainer. Da, 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 da. So anyway, so again, it's the same idea. You have these lines running parallel to these lines. You have the mast. This would be the pin that we load weight on. And instead of having a cameraman sitting here, we're going to push our thumb. So what's going to happen is, when I add weight, it's going to make our cameraman go up in the air. And now, I'm going to use my thumb to push down, just like the telegraph key. Only difference is, it's going to go straight up and down. Just like that. We could use metal. We could use metal, probably the same gauge as the steel that David Horn has picked out for his smartly designed thumb screws, so that we're getting that closed position. But by staying parallel, we're traveling in a more natural pinching position. Go straight up and down, and we can progressively load it. And after I built this thing, I realized, hey, wait, there's one other thing going on here, which is kind of cool. So remember before I talked about your thumb kind of sliding off this as it gets in that open position? Well, your thumb, as it pivots, you can move your thumb a little bit out, but you can't extend it like here. Can't get any longer. You can't have a go-go gadget thumb, which is what you really would need to work this high-end range of this motion with that style device, or the thumb screws even. So looking at a film crane again, I had an aha moment. So here's another style picture of a film crane. And there's one thing I want to point out. Here's that mast again, and here's the arm. When the arm is parallel to the ground, the camera would be furthest away from the mast. But when the camera goes either up in the air or down, the camera is actually going to get closer to the mast. And that's where it's important. Because in the same idea of my thumb pincher, by working just say the bottom half from parallel to down, the thumb doesn't have a chance to point up and just slide off this platform. So you can change the height of this platform on the parallelogram and decide, do you want this device to slowly travel that way or that way as you open and close it. It's a pretty simple idea. It's not really necessarily a new invention. It's basically just a construction crane, only, hey, let's use it for grip. So I'm going to give a shout out now to you guys that like to build stuff. Especially a shout out to one guy, because he gave me this free gripper a while ago. So Jared, thank you again for this GHP 7. But a shout out to Andrew, Aaron, Gil, David Horn, Mighty Joe, and Jared, you as well. You guys like to build stuff. So if you think this is a cool idea, go ahead and build it. Because the reality is, I'm never going to get past building this thing with Legos. That's all I got going for me, is my kids and playing with them and their toys. So there you have it. I hope you think it's a cool idea. And if you think it's a cool idea, let me know if you build one. Have a good day, everybody.